Hi. From our channel comments, it seems that some ex-witnesses are pitting the Old Testament against the New Testament, and even claiming that the Old Testament God is evil, even Satan, and that the New Testament Jesus is the one that's going to rescue us from this false evil God. Are you favoring the New Testament over the Old Testament? Are they opposite in their teaching? John Wenham weighs in on this, and he actually presents the problem with this point of view. Under the subheading, The Stumbling Block of the New Testament, in his book, The Goodness of God, he says, "It is plain at once that it is fallacious to regard this as essentially an Old Testament problem, and to set the bloodthirsty Old Testament over against the gentle New Testament. Possibly the phenomenon of is more crude in the Old Testament than the New, but of the two, the New Testament is more terrible, for the Old Testament seldom speaks of anything beyond temporal judgments. The death of Uzziah for a seemingly trifling infringement of the Mosaic law is indeed a fearful thing. But there is no suggestion that the penalty is eternal damnation, whereas the Son of Man in the Gospels pronounces eternal punishment. To the Old Testament writers, the impending wrath is usually a judgment on the historical plane. To the New Testament writers, it is usually a judgment beyond the grave, though even here a sharp contrast is not to be imagined. It is the New Testament which records the sudden death of Ananias and Sapphira, and the sudden blindness of Elymas, and the terrible end of Herod Agrippa, who an angel of the Lord smote, and who was eaten by worms and died. And the destruction of Jerusalem is pictured as a divine judgment in the New Testament, as clearly as was the destruction of Babylon or Nineveh in the Old. But the stress is on the afterlife, so that we find in each of the four Gospels, in Acts, in Paul's letters, in Hebrews, James, Peter, John, Jude, and the book of Revelation, strong and clear teachings about the judgment and the wrath to come. Omitting for a moment the Lord's words, here are a few examples of the New Testament teaching. So I'm just going to isolate a few of them. John the Baptist, "You brood of vipers, who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? He will clear his threshing floor. The chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire." John the Evangelist states, "He who does not obey the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God rests upon him." In the book of Acts, when Paul is speaking to Felix, it says, "And as he argued about justice and self-control and future judgment, Felix was alarmed." In Paul's letters, specifically in Romans, it says, "The foundation of his great doctrinal exposition in the epistle to the Romans is the terrible passage on the wrath of God." Quoting here, "You are storing up wrath for yourself on the day of wrath when God's righteous judgment will be revealed. For he will render to every man according to his works. For those who are factious and do not obey the truth, but obey wickedness, there will be wrath and fury. There will be tribulation and distress for every human being who does evil, on that day when God judges the secrets of men by Christ Jesus. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for it is because of these things that the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. The Lord is an avenger in all these things, as he solemnly forewarned you." And then in 2 Peter, you have the phrase, heaven and earth that now exist have been stored up for fire, being kept until the day of judgment and the destruction of ungodly men. The book of Revelation bristles with judgments depicted in the most lurid colors. We will merely extract a few vivid phrases. Here are the phrases. The wine of God's wrath, the cup of his anger, tormented with fire and sulfur, the great winepress of the wrath of God. From his mouth issues a sharp sword with which to smite the nations. He rules them with a rod of iron. He will tread the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God the Almighty. And then it talks about the second death, the lake of fire. Surely it cannot be said that the severity of God is primarily an Old Testament problem. These references are but a fraction of the total. But they show beyond all cavil that the problem of judgment of God finds its acutest expression in the New Testament. So then we might say, well, perhaps if we only look at the teachings of Christ, the words of Jesus. So that's what we will do in the next video. The next one, he has a subtitle called The Stumbling Block of the Teaching of Christ. I'm going to link 2 videos. The first one, Yahweh Rebukes Satan, exJWs Reject Gnosticism. And the second video is one that we recently did, Matthew for Jehovah's Witnesses, about John's blunt message, flee from the wrath to come.